Hey there, welcome to Plus Talk on Plus Life, where we are all about turning positive into a plus. You know, each year, October 15th is National LatinX AIDS Awareness Day, and it recognizes and addresses the disproportionate impact of HIV on the Hispanic and Latinx communities. This year's theme is Living with HIV or Not. We're in this together. I love that theme. Joining me today, Daniel G. Garza and Ariel Sabillon. Thanks for being on Plus Talk with me, gents.
Hi, how you
Thank
doing?
you for having us.
Yeah, doing great. So, Daniel G. Garza, you are in Laguna Beach. Ariel, you're over there in Tallahassee, Florida. Let's talk about the theme. 2020's theme for National Latinx AIDS Awareness Day is Living with HIV or Not. We're in this together. When you hear that line, what does it make you think? What does it make you feel? I'll start with you, Ariel.
Well, for me, it really comes down to realizing that we are one collective global community that is experiencing shock at every level, at a mental level, at an emotional level, and at a physical level. And right now, we're made really aware of that. So, living with HIV at this moment really is about healing, not the physical aspect of HIV, which I think we've been focusing on for the past 30 or so years since the beginning of the epidemic, but the emotional and the energetic wounds that were created around HIV and the patterns of behavior and thinking and emotions that led us to being diagnosed with HIV. And that goes for everybody. Really, it's not just people living with HIV, but for anybody that has any trauma regarding sex, sexuality, and intimacy.
Yeah, Daniel, it would seem that, that last part of the theme this year, we're in this together, couldn't be more kind of aptly put, considering what the world is going through. And as much as we're all kind of isolated from one another, it does feel, I mean, we are in fact going through a pandemic together. But what does it mean in the Latinx and Hispanic communities when we talk about HIV across the community? Do you feel like your community is in it together, positive or negative?
Well, first of all, it's really thank you for having us on the show. First, it's really interesting that this year I celebrate 20 years as an HIV positive man, as an HIV Latino positive man, and so the theme of it, it's really it's cool that we're bringing up like U equals U took a bigger step forward. PrEP and medications took a huge step forward, not just in how it's put out to the community, but what it's doing to bring us together. Partners where one is negative, one is positive, can have a healthy sexual life without as much concerns as we used to have. Now, when it comes to the Latino community, yes, we're still several steps behind because half of the information that, uh, let me put this, the information that you find in English, you only find about half of it in Spanish. And if you do, it's put out in a technical way that it's not understandable to most Latinos. Not to mention that there's still the stigma, the religious factors, the cultural factors. So I think I find myself in the middle because I've been in this country since I was 3 years old, that I can understand everything. So I'm at the front of it. But then I think about my Latino brothers and sisters who are having a harder time to connecting with it, despite all the advancements that we have. So I think we have a lot of more work to do on that part.
Yeah, Ariel, you were diagnosed when you were 17, so I think that's about 3 years ago, right?
Oh no, that was about 6 years ago.
Oh, I apologize. My math is off. I've never been good with numbers. But still, 6 years ago versus Daniel's 20 years ago, very big difference in what it means to be diagnosed then and now. As a young millennial living with HIV, what was the diagnosis process like for you 6 years ago? And do you think we're in a better place when it comes to the Hispanic and Latin communities?
Wow. So I was in high school actually when I was diagnosed with HIV. I was in my senior year of high school, or going into my senior year of high school, and at that time I felt very ostracized because it felt like I was developing my sexuality at that time. So it really felt like I was blocked from furthering that. And then I actually ended up becoming more, becoming a little bit more rowdy with my sexuality afterwards, because I didn't really have time to develop my sexual prowess, if you will, before I was diagnosed with HIV. It was really intense for me and a huge wake up call. And it really caused me to retreat and to put up a lot of walls with people. And so it became really difficult for me to create intimacy. I do think that there has been a lot of progress made within the Latino community, primarily because I've seen it. When my parents first find out, they thought that I was going to die. They thought, oh my God, like we're losing our son, because there still is a lot of stigma. Especially my parents that come from Honduras, they were born and raised there, and the rest of my family who all live in Honduras. It was really intense. They really thought that I honestly was going to die. And this has been the narrative in a lot of our countries where AIDS is still a pretty serious thing. Maybe not so much in the U.S., but in many other countries where there is a lack of health infrastructure, it still really is a problem. So for me, stepping into my power and to being vulnerable with them and saying, "Hey, listen, I'm okay. Things will be okay. I'm feeling okay, and here's why I'm okay," was a big stepping stone for them, because then they realized, oh, like he really is okay. Oh, there really is health. And then they told the rest of my family members. And ever since then, it's just been kind of a domino effect. And people are waking up and realizing, oh, not only is he not going to die, but he's actually going to thrive. And he's being vulnerable and he's expressing this in such a free spirited manner that it shatters the whole perception of the AIDS patient that they had in their mind.
Well, I mean, and it's so nice and reassuring to hear that. Daniel, when you hear that and you compare it to your experience, how does it make you feel to hear this young man who's having a rather positive experience now compared to, say, maybe what you went through? Or was your experience similar?
It's so interesting to hear his story because 20 years or 14 years, when it comes to that, the immigrant parents, first generation HIV story, we could be the same person. My parents, when they found out I was diagnosed with AIDS, when I was diagnosed, and it was exactly the same thing. They were making arrangements to bury me and not leave the hospital. And spoiler alert, I made it. I'm still here. But uh, that not, honestly makes me a little sad that I've been in the education, HIV education business for almost 20 years. And to know that these stories are still happening means that there's a
Mhm.
part of us, me, I have to take my responsibility. I'm not doing everything I possibly can to educate the Latino community and letting them know, be aware of what HIV and AIDS is and what can and can't happen. So, and as I said earlier, there's still a lot more work to do. And whew, I have this image of my parents in the hospital right now when they told them,
Mhm.
and we need to change that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know, we're focusing on National LatinX AIDS Awareness Day. We've certainly covered, what it means to be living with HIV in Black and Brown and trans communities, minority communities on Plus Talk. I've talked about my own personal experience, and it's interesting. We all have our own sort of set of cultural ideals and how we all deal with things differently in our cultures. But there is this undercurrent commonality between all of us, and it's normally the shame and guilt that's associated with picking up HIV, and
Mhm.
it's that we still somehow feel less than. And I don't think that is any different whether you're Black, brown, Chinese, wherever you come from, whatever language you speak, whoever you pray to. What do you think it is about HIV that really gets to us all like that? And that's for both of you.
For me personally, in my experience, stigmatizing myself, because we have to be honest, sometimes we do stigmatize ourselves and we hold shame within ourselves for having HIV, and then that gets projected. Um, I'll be real about it. It's associated with gay. It's associated with being gay. It's associated with gay men, and there's a
It's also
stigma within.
associated with sex and drugs. which is taboo no matter
Exactly.
who
Exactly.
you like to have
Well,
sex
that's what I
with.
was going to get to. Like when someone thinks of a gay man, in a traditional homophobic setting, it's because they're thinking sex with men. They're not thinking, oh, he's in love, or they're not thinking about that. They're just thinking, oh, he has sex with other men and he gets penetrated, which is really taboo. The idea of a man being penetrated, the idea of having sex and of using drugs is something that as a society collectively worldwide, I think I can speak for the world in this specific setting, because I've noticed it in many, many, many different cultures, and many people that I've talked to express similar feelings, that there is this shame around sexuality, around anything that kind of deviates between the norm, and the norm obviously changes with amongst cultures, but there is kind of like a strict norm that has been set up in many places, and HIV shatters that. It's like, oh my God, they're having sex, and they're wearing that badge in their health, right? And so there's this stigma that comes from that, and really for us to target the root of that, it's to bring sex to the forefront. Pull sex out of shame, pull it out of guilt. Let's have sex without shame. Let's have sex without guilt. Let's stop stigmatizing drug users, right? People who use it's a medicine, right? Because life, gosh, I mean, life can be so tough, right? And then some of us use these things as medicine. And so we shame people because at the end of the day, we're projecting onto them.
I agree. I think the villainization of people who have who battle addiction problems, things that I think generally speaking, things we don't understand and feel in control of, we're frightened of. And when we're frightened of it, it's easier for us, I think, to throw up a wall, distance ourselves from it, whether it's someone on drugs or whether it's sex or sexuality or even religion. When we don't understand it, it frightens us. It's easier to push it away than open our arms. In the last few seconds that I've got with you guys, you're both out and proud HIV activists. You're both part of this community. So on this recognition of Latinx AIDS Awareness Day, what do you want to say to your Hispanic Latino brothers and sisters out there who are battling with either the stigma directly, or they know someone and they don't know how to approach them because they've got HIV and their cultural beliefs? Daniel, do you want to go first? What do you want to say to those people out there?
Sure. If you're HIV negative, protect yourself, stay safe. This is not a club that we want you to join, so don't put in a membership. It's not that cool. And if you are positive, whether you're newly diagnosed or a long timer like me, just know that I may not be the best example of thriving and surviving, but I've made a career out of my diagnosis. So let it work for you, not you work for it. And I assure you that maybe not all of the stigma and shame will fall off, but most of it will, and you will thrive and you will survive.
Love that. Ariel, what about you?
There is light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to walk through that dark path. And once you do, you will be so, 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 so blessed. So blessed. There is medicine in immense and deep suffering. This makes us stronger. And I can assure you of that. And you will have beautiful, joyous, ravages sex. Beautiful, primal, and amazing and ethereal. And you will connect to the cosmos. It's possible. It will happen for you, and there will be no guilt and there will be no shame.
I have this feeling that a lot of people are going to be sliding into Ariel's DMs after they see this episode of Plus Talk. Ariel Sabillon, Daniel G. Garza, thank you so much. A reminder, October 15th, National LatinX AIDS Awareness Day. If you want more information on the day itself or anything we've discussed in today's episode of Plus Talk, be sure to check out pluslifemedia.com. And of course, you can follow us across all social media platforms at Plus Life Media. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Until next time, remember, you can turn positive into a plus.